Hello everybody, I'm Iben Thranholm. I'm in Verona today, and with me I have Dr. Steve Turley, who is a scholar and a speaker, and maybe somebody would know him from Turley Talks on YouTube.
Well, they should, darn it, yeah.
We are here in Verona because we are attending a conference called the World Congress of Families, which is a pro-family, pro-life congress. And if you can hear people screaming in the background, it's because there has been a lot of resistance against this conference. A lot of what are the letters?
LGBT.
I always mix it up.
Yeah, it sounds like a sandwich, doesn't it?
And radical feminists has been protesting. There has been massive police here.
I couldn't believe how much security. I mean, we're talking armored cars, machine guns. It's stunning, yeah.
And before the conference started, there was a lot of negativity in the press. They wanted to stop the conference. They even were talking about sanctions against the billboards.
I was going to say negativity is being very kind, even. I think, I mean, there was just downright slanderous coverage. It was really ugly stuff.
Yeah, but they actually called us haters, fascist, anti-abortionists, and deplorables.
We're
right-wing losers.
We've begun to use these labels as badges of honor. You know, we have Boy Scouts in the United States, and we get badges every time we pass something. I think we have several badges from this weekend. Yeah.
What really amazes me, or surprises me, I would even say scares me, is that a conference where we are talking about the defense of the natural family. We're not talking about.
We're not talking about radical ideas
There have been no speakers on the list talking against somebody.
Right.
There has been no talks about that we are against same-sex marriage or anything like that. It's only pro.
It's pro.
We've been speaking about what we are for.
Yep.
And yet people are so disturbed and so aggressive and so negative. Why do you think that this is happening? I'm really surprised.
I think it's an indicator, obviously. It does not show confidence, that's for sure. It does not show confidence in their movement when they have to resort to such slanderous accusations like they're doing. Remember, what's interesting here is, every society has a taboo system. Every society has things that you just can't do. And there's anthropologists would argue that's rooted in something called the sacred Durkheim in the early 20th century would say that. You don't have a society without some standards for what you do. You touch this, that's taboo. You're actually threatening the entire community when you're doing something like this. What we're finding is that secularists and globalists, and I see them as basically the same thing, they're widening the taboo system so that, like, maybe we would have said, we'd all agree, for example, that racism is wrong. So in the United States, when Martin Luther King is marching, you have the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese Archbishop marching with him. You have a Catholic Archbishop marching with him. We can all agree on that. Okay, that's a taboo. But now what the left is trying to do is they're trying to stretch that definition to anybody who would actually defend the family or the sanctity of marriage, or the sanctity of life and children in the womb. Now they're just as bad, but the problem is when they go in March, they don't find the Greek Orthodox Archbishop next to him. They don't find the Catholic Archbishop next to him. Now you have these very same groups, Greek and Catholic, saying, wait a minute, we're not with you on that. This is not the same thing. And so what they resort themselves to doing now is just bullying us, literally verbally stoning us. But it doesn't suggest a lot of confidence. You didn't see that, for example, in the civil rights movements of the 60s. So I think it's an indicator that they recognize that this is a movement on their part that has a lot of limitation.
But still, the staff told me yesterday that people came from all around Italy to Verona just to protest.
Right.
So it means people have been traveling. It's just not local people.
No.
Every speaker on the stage has touched upon this aggressiveness.
Right.
And especially people here from Italy, the mayor, even Salvini, Matteo Salvini, the prime minister, was here yesterday, and he said on stage that people had told him in Rome, "You're very courageous that you want to go and speak at this conference.
Right.
It could really ruin your political career."
Right.
So it's very high profile negativity.
Right.
It's not just some local people who hear
No.
disturbed.
Well, again, it's as global as globalism itself. So it's motivating left-wing activists from all over to do what the only thing they know how to do right now, which is to protest. They're the protesters. This is the irony. We're not.
I saw two women yesterday here, just in front of the arena. They had two T-shirts, or they had a T-shirt on saying "No space for haters," and I just came from that conference room where there was so much love and so much love for life and for the faith. There was no hate at all, and no people were speaking about that we did not like people who did not want to be in a natural family.
The obvious question to them is if this is no space for haters, what are you doing here? Because the only hate we're getting is from them. The tolerant are always the masters of intolerance. Those who say we're against hate are the ones who say the only people who are allowed to hate are the haters. It's literally a mirror image. Whatever they say they're against, they're the worst proponents of and practitioners of. It's a very bizarre thing.
I think to me, it speaks volumes that now we're living in an age where people get aggressive just because you defend the normal family.
Right.
The nuclear family. It makes people aggressive.
Right.
And talking about hate. What kind of culture is that we have ended up in?
Well, it's secular. In the end, it's all the things that you're looking at on a daily basis. Secularism has a different kind of taboo system, and where historically a taboo system would be something like anything that violates the natural family, because that's of course rooted in this notion of, we can actually get into it, it's rooted in this notion of cosmic piety. C.S. Lewis writes about it in his Abolition of Man. Cosmic piety is the assumption that the world's filled with divine meaning and purpose, and therefore every person born into the world is born into a divine obligation. We're obliged to conform our lives in a harmonious relationship with that divine meaning and purpose. Secularism got rid of all of that. Secularism enshrined the individual, the sovereign individual, and now says the purpose of life is to conform all of life to me and to my needs and my desires, and anything that stands in the way of that is now taboo. So that's why they come out and they say, I won't even discuss, I won't deliberate, which of course are hallmarks of democracy, which is precisely what we want to do. I won't even do that. I will simply verbally stone you as an outcast. I will excommunicate you. You have no place in this modern global secular world.
But most people in the secular world would like to be in a family. Most people like to be.
It is ironic, isn't it?
Family, and gay people want to make a family.
Right.
So why is it so alarming and disturbing to them that somebody wants just like a traditional family?
That's a complicated question. Again, I think there's a natural. It's a natural need. I think we were talking about that silly word globalism the other day. That's a funny one. Globalism is a strange word that scholars use to talk about this bizarre intermix between globalism on the one hand and a sense of, like what we have here in Verona, this localism on the other. So just down the street, we've got this beautiful, probably 18th, 17th century building that's housing a McDonald's. That's globalism. And globalism has some strange contradictions. So yeah, we've got now sovereign individuality being celebrated. That says the family is nothing more than a lifestyle value. But darn it, I want to have a family. Family is still revered, and there's no way around it. I still want a mom, a dad, I want a spouse, I want children. It seems to me it's a globalism. To try to make sense out of globalism is a tough one, other than to just recognize the paradox that it is. So on one hand, we're haters, on the other hand, they want everything that we have.
But to me, it's unbelievable that you can even think that somebody who wants a traditional family could be hateful.
Right.
Just because you want mom and dad and children.
Right.
And many children. Then
right.
You are somebody who's hateful.
Right. Right. Well, that's, again, to me, that's the taboo. It's taboos awaken within us that this is not natural, this is not normal. So that's what scholars will say. You can't have a society without a social order. So you've got to have something that orders society, and ultimately that's culture. And at the heart of culture is cult. And this is, again, what you study so much is this notion that without some kind of sacred, without some kind of inviolable, absolute, unquestionable rules, understandings, and goals to guide your society and define what's normal and what's natural, without that, we can't function. We just can't function as a society. But entailed in that is they also, that cult of culture functions as an immune system. And when it finds something that's not natural or normal, it kicks in and tries to destroy it. And I think that's what they're doing. They see us as outside of a secular norm, and rather than be able to debate or discuss or dialogue, they try to destroy.
To me, it seems like they just want to destroy. It's a it is a destruction of the old world order.
Right.
Which is all about.
Right.
Because they want to create a new sort of species.
Right. Yeah. You're post-human.
Where you are not sure whether you are a man or a woman or a boy or a girl.
Right.
Even when you're born.
Right.
So this is trying to change the created world order, so to say.
If you think about it, if the whole notion of cultural Marxism is to alleviate power discrepancies, and your power discrepancies are rooted in difference, what do you need to get rid of? You need to get rid of the difference. And so I think there is an asexuality inherent in it when it gets applied to gender. If there's no such thing as a man and a woman, now we've solved the problem. So you're right. I think it is. I think there's an inherent post-humanism in this new breed of secular liberalism.
But like you say, they want everything that traditional life has.
That's the globalism, but yeah, that's it. So they want to go in this brave new world, but they want to bring a teddy bear with them to hold. You know, you can't have it both ways. What do you want? Do you want to be post-human, or do you want the things that make us human? Which one is it? You can't have both. So it's got to have to work itself out. The good news is what it seems to be working out is what makes us human by nature wins. We've always tried the Babel experiment, and it never seems to turn out very well. And it's just a new kind of empire. It's a new kind of cultural colonialism.
But
that's really all it is.
What is striking to me, sitting here in Verona, which is the city of, Italian history, really. It's really a very historical city, and Italian is really associated with the large family, the big family. Yeah. And this is happening in Verona, where you used to have the huge, big families, actually who has established the city.
Yep.
And now we have this protest against the family in Italy. People coming from all over Italy to protest against their own culture.
Right.
I simply just don't believe that it's happening.
Right. Yeah, and and the beauty, it seems to me, is that they're frustrated, they're angry, they're upset because not enough people are standing up with them. Verona, as many of your listeners may know, is actually a pro-life city. It's an officially pro-life city, there's a growing number of them in Europe and in South America, Latin America, where you're having city councils voting to say we're going to deliberately use funds to promote life and to promote adoption agencies and promote crisis pregnancy centers and the like. And we are not going to advertise abortion. We're not going to celebrate it. It's there, but it's not going to be part of our identity as a people, an open identity as a people. And they're panicked. They recognize that. Again, this is yelling and screaming and coming together in anger is not a sign that you're winning. It's a sign that you're panicking.
And also, this is the city of Romeo and Juliet, who wanted to be a family, be married.
Right.
And Shakespeare sort of praised marriage in this piece of his.
Right.
It didn't work out so well.
That's
had
right.
to kill each
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And now Italy is killing the family.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's a nice connection. That's very good.
Yeah.
Well, again, I would say factions of Italy. I think if this were, say, 14 months, well, I guess we'll have to go back longer. When was the election? March of 2018. So, if this were a couple of years ago, we could say that. We could say, there's a center-left coalition party in power. They haven't met an alternative lifestyle that they don't hug and kiss. anything that's traditionalist, anything that is richly cultural, anything that's customary, we're just going to ignore. It's just, it's part of a racist, bigoted, homophobic past that we just don't want to recall anymore. So again, it's like turning everything into a kind of fascism where the taboo system ends up acting like an immune system to get rid of it. But now you're seeing Italy rise up and saying no more. We're not doing this anymore. There's a blowback. There's a backlash. Not everybody is with it. What we're finding is that somebody made a distinction the other day between population and politicians, but they used a different kind of alliteration there. But people were suddenly realizing, wait a minute, there really is a massive difference between the values of our ruling elites, as it were, and the values of the people who just get together, in the piazza or in Britain at the pubs. This is what Nigel Farage was saying. What he was hearing in Brussels and what he was hearing at his local pubs were completely different. They were fundamentally different. One was elite and the other was populace, and the populace still believe in tradition.
So the theme of this World Congress of Families is actually the wind of change, Europe and the global pro-family movement. And you gave a talk, and that was quite positive, because you think that there is a wind of change, that Europe is coming back to something traditional. And I want to challenge you on that, because now look here.
No, you're not allowed.
look here in this square. It doesn't look like you're right, Steve.
Right.
It looks like people have a different mindset than you. That
right.
They're not going back to traditional life.
Well, they're all wrong.
But actually,
all of them.
you stood on stage and you defended your view of point, or your point of view, that things are changing.
Mm-hmm.
So please tell me and the viewers why you think that. Because I don't see many signs.
Yeah. It's hard to. Well, we're not going to see it on the media, that's for sure. The media isn't going to care less about that as far as our corporatist, globalist media, no matter where you are, in Denmark, Scandinavia, UK, Rome. I've been watching Italian media, actually, which is very, very interesting. I only understand about 10%, but... and the States. It's all going to be, globalism by definition is a one-size-fits-all standardized protocol for all political, economic, and to whatever extent as cultural activity. So granted, things are going to look monolithic, and what do they look like? Well, globalism wins, secularism wins. That's just inevitable. We're evolving ever more into a wonderful secular future. But what is so fascinating is when you start looking at scholarly literature on this stuff, and particularly in sociology, they're coming to very, very different conclusions. And they're gathering this from a lot of data, especially from things like the World Values Survey, which is surveyed, when you put it all together, over 1 million people across the globe. And what they're finding is, and then you're also seeing it politically as well being expressed in this massive shift to the right going on throughout the continent, what they're recognizing is the world is not moving in the direction that secularist globalists will claim it has. Instead, what we're actually seeing is a massive backlash, the likes of which we've never seen.
But where do you see that exactly?
Well, so if you're looking at specific, you have to look at local levels, middle levels, macro levels, and then you can even do mega levels in terms of in international relationships. But just take a look at the percentage of people who ascribe allegiance to one of the major historical world religions. 80% of the world's population ascribe themselves as religious people.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is stunning. You look at China. China's going through 2 revivals right now. It's going through a Confucian revival among its upper class, and it's going through a Christian revival, the size of which may be the single greatest Christian revival in the history of humanity. You look at the Middle East, more people were attending mosque than ever before. You go to Hungary. Hungary is declaring its support of Christian civilization and the building of Christian democracy. In November 2016, in a formal ceremony in the presence of Andrzej Duda, the president of Poland, Poland's archbishops declared Jesus Christ as Lord and King over their nation. You have the Russian Orthodox Church enjoying a prominence now not seen since the days of the Tsars. You have India going through a massive Hindu nationalist revival through the Bharatiya Janata Party, it's the BJP, and they are the single largest democratic party on the planet, and they're a thoroughly right-wing
But Steve,
party.
do they have any influence? Because you have a very powerful global elite that
You do.
That has a different ideology.
You do.
So who is the stronger one here?
You do. Well, so the strength in terms of just, in terms of money and power right now is obviously globalists, because they're the ones who own everything. They own the media, they own the politics, they own the corporations, they own everything. So the universities, my heavens, the education system, they own everything. But what is so fascinating is despite that, there is this massive backlash going on. And there's reasons for that. Scholars are finding there's a logic behind the backlash in terms of what's called post-security politics. So granted, I think we're at the beginnings of this. But the question is not so much who has the power now, the question is who has the ultimate, longitudinally, who has the leverage. And I would submit that the nationalist, populist, traditionalist backlash has the leverage, because I think the roots of globalism have rotted out. The roots of globalism have died. That's modernity. People are not modernists anymore. We're postmodernists, and globalism doesn't work with postmodernity because modernity is a one-size-fits-all philosophical system. The scientific rationalism is the one true way of understanding the world. Okay, that's rotted out and died. We tend to be postmodern. We're pluralistic, but the fruits of modernity is globalization, a one-size-fits-all political and economic system. But you don't have to be a genius to figure out people have rejected a one-size-fits-all philosophical system. They're going to reject the one-size-fits-all political and economic system. So I give the leverage to nationalist populism because I think their roots are stronger than ever, and that is this resurgent traditionalism. So I see the kind of connection of border economy and culture as interconnected, and this resurgent religion is going to take on a rotted root any time. But it's going to have to work itself out over time. It's not going to be a quick fix. It's not going to be one election.
But you're right that religion is stronger than any secular system. You're right. So if people start to go back to their religious roots, this might be have a kind of revolutionary effect.
Right.
But it needs to come from within. It needs to come from the roots, because I don't think it can come from the top, some kind of political ideology. It needs to be a spiritual movement, so to say. Because I think people who are globalist and very secular, they're very much against religion. So it is a clash between not believing in God and believing in God.
Right.
Under the political surface, there is this kind of spiritual warfare going on.
Absolutely.
So I think the way you can change the world is by going back to your religious roots.
Absolutely.
More than being a political activist for the time being.
Absolutely. Sunday morning liturgy is the single most radical act you can commit. I mean, because if you think it through, not only, and of course we're speaking in Christian terms here, not only is it the Eucharist, historically speaking, the consecration of the entire cosmos. People forget that in the book of Genesis, on the third day of creation, God creates grain and fruit, which when processed is bread and wine. So when you lift up the elements, the bread and wine, in the consecration, it's a call to consecrate the entire cosmos, to sanctify the entire world. So it is the single most radical thing that we can possibly do. But then, of course, by definition, it spills out into the whole of society. I would say, I don't think it's only grassroots. I agree with you absolutely. I think it has to be organic and bottom up. But we do find it can also be top down. There can be.
But it's not yet.
Right.
That's
right.
my point.
Right.
So you need to work your way up.
Right.
So
but they can knock sparks off of each other, and so like what Viktor Orban's doing in Hungary, or Andrzej Duda did. Or even just if you think it through, what John Paul II did with his Novum, his 9 days in Poland in 1979, was that June or July, which changed the world in many ways.
But the real point here is that the only way you can change society is through the change of heart.
Is through the change of heart and
Yeah.
spiritual renewal.
Exactly.
In many respects, secularism was a spiritual renewal, but it was a spirit of the age. It was a spiritual ism that radically changed what it meant to be human.
I actually think that secularism is quite spiritual because it is against the Christian worldview.
Right.
This is what it's all about, trying to break it down.
Very intentionally and very self-consciously.
And this kind of destructive force is also spiritual.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. There's no, you can't dismiss it. We are both. I mean, to be human is to be a mediator between heaven and earth, right? And Christ, we fell, and then Christ fulfills that. We believe in a physical world, and we believe in an invisible world of soul and angels and demons and heaven and the like. And when those two come together, that's what makes us a virtuous, wise, true, good, beautiful people. When you split them apart, all of that collapses, and what it means to be truly human in terms of a human flourishing falls apart. So secularism tried to split them apart. It literally said, heaven is for your own private, personal thing, keep it out of the public square. Oh, great, that's that. Yeah. So it's Christianity and astrology, and yoga. Okay, great. That's not working, and we're finding it out that we're becoming machines. We've become standardized. This is what the anger, I think, is with the EU. EU's gone from a very helpful economic servant to this horrific master that's kind of redefining what the human person actually is. And unless we have a spiritual renewal, we're not going to have a opposite spirit to overcome that previous spirit.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I think that just being into politics is not enough.
Not enough, no.
There's another theme I would like to address, and that is you have been written articles about Denmark.
Oh yeah. But that's not fair. You have a little advantage on me on that.
Since I am a Dane and I'm located in Copenhagen,
but what do you know?
I was very curious to read your article about you think that things are going very well in Denmark.
I love Denmark.
Nothing is rotten in Denmark.
I'm moving to Denmark.
Because you actually like our anti-immigration laws.
I do.
We have very strict laws.
Very strict,
about immigration. But yet,
probably the strictest in Western Europe, without.
And you're right, we're closing our borders. Even the Social Democrats now want to close the borders. Yeah. But, as we discussed yesterday, it doesn't mean that we... I would like to have some water.
Some water?
Yeah. Still water, please.
Okay.
Yeah. Coffee, con latte.
Latte macchiato?
Yeah.
So we just had a little interruption here from the
there
waiter.
You go, yeah. But we're using his space. So,
I was just wondering, because you think that there is a wind of change in Denmark because we are closing our borders, so we are on the right track towards traditional values.
Yeah.
But that's not what I see, because Denmark is a very liberal country.
Right.
And there is a kind of a lot of insecurity about what does it mean to be a Dane being confronted with Islam. So we had this discussion, and nobody is really able to define Danish identity.
Right.
So I'm just wondering, does it really help just to close the borders?
Right.
It doesn't heal the culture.
Right.
From its kind of, disintegration.
Right.
So to say.
Right. Yeah. No, I get you. Here we are in this beautiful Verona square here, and to make a beautiful sculpture, you have to first get your marble. When they closed the borders, Denmark got its marble. Okay, but if that's all you're going to do, you just got a big block of stone, and there's nothing more to it than that. So I see three things as interconnected. We were talking about this the other day, and scholars call it PostSecurity Politics. Globalism hates borders, hates boundaries. It hates localized economies. It likes to open up economies into a worldwide global division of labor. And it really does not like individualist cultures, because they do get in the way of consumerism, closing things on Sunday and things like that. They don't like different languages. They don't like, you name it. Because again, they get in the way of a one-size-fits-all political and economic system. So I see all three as interconnected. For example, open borders means open values. What we find, I like to use, say, Haredi Jews as an example. Haredi Jews will say you can only marry another Jewish person and part of our our kin group, as it were, kin widely defined. That means then because of the the strictures on your body and who you can marry, that's going to be reflected on the strictures of the community and who can enter in. If anyone can enter into the community, well, then you can marry anyone. So open borders means open values. Closed borders means a protection of values, or can mean a protection of values. And that's where I think you've identified that's the next step. That's where Denmark is going to have to go. You close the borders, that's important. That's what Hungary's been doing, Poland, Russia and the like. Italy is now doing it. You close the borders, but now, okay, but now if you don't go through a cultural renewal,
exactly.
you know, what are you trying to preserve in the end?
Exactly, and then in the end, I think another religion will take over.
Right.
Because this is what is happening, is that one religion is sort of crumbling, vanishing.
Right.
And then there cannot be this kind of vacuum, this void. Something else will fill it in.
Right.
So if you don't, fill up the vacuum yourself,
right,
another religion will take over, because man has a spiritual
of
longing,
course,
so to say.
Of course. Now, it just entered my thought. Now you have your own BBC, and I'm forgetting what it is, don't you? Denmark Radio or
Denmark's Radio.
Denmark Radio. And did you catch? There was an interesting article on, I guess, one of the producers saying, in effect, that from now on Christianity is going to have to be featured on that?
It was actually the government who decided
right.
that. But listen, I have been working as a host
right.
on Denmark's Radio.
Right.
And I didn't have the feeling that they were favoring Christianity at all.
At all.
It's something,
even despite that kind of announcement.
It's something that is on the paper.
Right.
But in reality, I would say, of course they have programs
right.
which deals with Christianity, but they're not promoting Christianity.
Yeah, the disposition isn't there.
They are not promoting.
Well, and there's that from top down to versus bottom up.
You can easily have a program where they would talk about liberal Christianity.
Right.
That if you are Christian, you should be for same-sex marriage.
Right.
So it's all a matter of how you interpret.
Right. Exactly.
So
grazie.
It doesn't. No, just a small one. A small one. So it doesn't really. I mean, you cannot be sure.
Right.
That it will be traditional Christianity.
Right.
It could be, but it could easily be
right.
kind of liberal version.
Right.
So it will promote all the secular values.
Right. just through the medium of Christianity. Yeah. So again, these are the complexities behind it. So we've got the long-term trends, but then how those trends work themselves out or fail to is the next step to look at. For me, I think you're right. I have a hard time seeing Islam take over Denmark. Right now, we're in this bizarre kind of interregnum period of kind of, new agey sort of stuff. I think we were talking about the World Values Survey finding that Danes were actually particularly prone to horoscopes and angels and spirits and the like.
To be honest with you, I don't think the transition from Christianity to Islam would be such a big hurdle for people in the end, because think about how Islam view Christ. They say he's not resurrected. He may have been crucified, he may not have been crucified, but he's not resurrected.
Right.
This is actually what many Christians today believe.
Right.
They don't believe in the resurrection.
Right.
So in the end, they have the same idea about Jesus as the Muslims.
Right.
So, normally when I want to provoke Danes, I said, well, but you could be Muslims because you think the same about Christ.
You basically have the same, yeah.
He's not
and a monist kind of vision of God or something like that. Yeah.
Every Easter, we have surveys in Denmark asking people if they believe that Christ has risen from the dead. And I think it's getting less and less every year.
Right.
Even priests would say, well, it's only symbolic.
But priests never fail to disappoint on those that end.
So what I'm seeing is that in the end, people could easily adapt to Islam, and also Islam has a rule, has a structure, and this is what modern people really need. They need a structure, they need a framework, and they need meaning of life. And somehow Islam is probably more simple because there's only one God.
Right,
There
right.
is no Trinity.
There's no priesthood. You access God directly.
I mean, the Quran gives you exactly the rules you have to follow.
Yeah.
You have to pray 5 times a day.
Yeah.
And you have to fast. But I mean, you don't really need to understand the mystery. There is no sacraments. There is no priesthood. There's nothing.
No.
There's just you and God. It's actually like Protestantism.
Yeah. No, definitely.
And Denmark is a very Protestant country.
Right.
So, in my view, it could happen that Danes would adapt. Right now, we are like a frog that has been put into cold water. And you start to heat it. Because we accept more and more Islamic rules, like segregated swimming holes, where you can't have boys and girls having swimming lessons together. We have halal meat in many kindergartens, things like that. So easily we adapt, like the frog in the cold water.
Washing facilities and all,
So in the end, well, you could say, well, why not just be Muslims?
Right. Well, no, I think you can't help. I think you're right. Your thesis is a religion is going to prevail. Secularism isn't it. It's too fragile. It's falling apart as we speak. It gets angry. It gets nasty. So what's going to replace it? I still think I hear what you're saying. I think theoretically, I still think there's. I mean, the closing of the borders clearly suggests, there's definitely some animus towards Islam, just as in theory. We'll see if that gets closed. I think you were mentioning to me that Danish women were actually, even to a certain extent, becoming attracted to Muslim men because at least they were men. Yeah. There was so there's something there, but. No question, we call it a post-secular world we're entering into. That's what the scholars said. I prefer post-globalist. It's just a little bit more has a little more strength to it for people. But we're going post-secular, and the question is, what is going to be your religion in the end? You're going to have one. That's the way.
I think what Europe has to face now is that there is no secular future for Europe.
There is no secular.
There are only 2 options, and that either Europe will become Islamic or it will be re-Christian.
Right, it'll be re-Christianized.
So people really have to make up their mind now which God will rule in Europe, because it will not be a secular way.
It's exhausted itself, and it didn't take too long either. It was only 70 years in the Soviet East. It lasted a little longer here with our liberal democracies, but no, you got it. I mean, secularism's over. And the question is, what's going to replace it? And I think you're right. You only have 2. New Agey stuff was created is a kind of religion for the secularist. Yeah. It allows the secularists to privatize their faith and believe whatever they want to believe. Whereas now in a post-secular society, it's going to have to be a public faith. And the question is which one we're going to be. Again, there's this trend. It's called retraditionalization. I know you're familiar with it. We've talked about it. Were Danes to actually become Islamic, that wouldn't be re-traditional. That would be like, radically break new tradition. So I would give the upper hand to a re-traditionalized Denmark, as hard as that might be able for you to see. It's easy for me from far away in Philadelphia. Oh yeah, you guys will be fine. Don't worry, But no, I would tend to go with that. I would tend to go with a re-traditionalized Lutheranism or re-traditionalized just Christian civilizational, broadly Christian civilizational commitment and confession. We'll have to see though. Right now, no question, we're still in that interim period, that globalism period, where it's hard to really make any sense of it because it's just two clashing and competing worlds. And we'll also want to keep an eye on the demographic trends to see if you start seeing breakouts like the Lestadian Lutherans in Finland or the Holland's Orthodox Calvinists who are having lots and lots and lots of children. And demographically then, that would mean if you had something comparable in Denmark 20, 40, 60, 100 years out, they're going to be calling the shots. I mean, it's a numbers game from that vantage point. And because they're so conservative, they tend to be, homeschooling, or they tend to be, I think you can homeschool. Can you homeschool in Denmark?
Oh, no.
No, that's right. So So they'll take.
Yes, you can, but it's completely.
It's just
unusual.
frowned. Yeah.
Nobody
So
would
they'll
do it.
be raising their kids more intentionally. So when they're coming back from school, what did you learn? Catechisms, that sort of stuff, like the Lestadian Lutherans do.
But what I really like about you, Steve, is that you give so much hope. You really believe that secularism is over and there is a post-secular religious revival coming soon.
And soon in different places. We have to get your Danes caught up here, right? You got it. I mean, we see it already. It's already happened. You saw it personally in Russia. In your visit. You saw it personally. That is a that's a full-blown post-secular
and
world.
if it could happen after Soviet broke down or collapsed, it can happen also in Europe.
You got it.
Because what we have now is a sort of communism, is cultural Marxism.
Right.
So it was defeated in the East, so it can be defeated in the West.
Right.
And that's why you give a lot of hope, and I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Iben. You give a lot of hope.
It's very encouraging to listen to you. So I really appreciate that. And
it's my pleasure.
Thanks for taking time.
Yeah, it's been great. We've had a great time.
In your busy schedule here.
Yeah, it has been quite the event, that's for sure. But this is it's been wonderful.
Tired.
Yeah, we are. We're ready to go home.
Exhausted. So thank you so much for watching Thranholm Talks, and if you would like, I would be very happy if you would subscribe to the channel.
Absolutely.
So see you soon again.
Start practicing that.
I can't say it. And,
right, a BLT sandwich kind of,
And yesterday there were a lot of police here because there were angry protesters, and now we see only pro-life movements coming out.
It's stunning.
I'm surprised to see this. There are thousands of people, and they're all pro-life, and they are pro-vita and pro-family.
So basically, if you bring the camera over to the right in the front of the building, that would have been about the protesters, the amount of protesters that we got from the LGBT community alike. But now if you pan, you look at the rise of a new conservative age.
It's amazing.
Absolutely stunning. These are the pro-life response to that LGBT.
And it was not announced because nobody at the conference talked about that there would be this gathering this morning.
Right.
So people just came out to be a counterculture to this protesting, because it has been all over Italy, it has been in the television, all this negativity about this conference, and now we see this.
And people,
it's like a miracle.
Aren't intimidated anymore. If anything, those kind of external assaults from the globalist media only breeds internal solidarity. It makes people want to support the movement even more. So it's over when the more you try to destroy something, the stronger it gets. It's all over.
Let's try to see if we can move. It's
barely.
It's packed here. And I'm very, very surprised because nobody spoke about this yesterday at the conference.
Yeah.
Or had
just
any
amazing.
idea that it would happen. So,
see a lot of Catholic presence here.
When we talked in the cafe before, I was a little bit skeptical towards your very positive, hopeful outlook. But now, I think I really believe you.
There it is. Here it is. Yeah, so, God is good.
Yeah.
That's.
So. Yeah. It's really amazing to see.
It is. It's absolutely beautiful. And on a Sunday, glorious, beautiful spring Sunday.
And it's all packed. I mean over to this yellow building.
Yeah, we can't walk any further.
Can't walk.
Yeah, no.
And all the way down to the arena here in
beautiful Verona. Yeah, the
so
small Coliseum. Yeah,
it's just outside the Coliseum in Rome, where you have all the operas.
Oh, it's beautiful.
So it's the center of Verona in Italy.
Yep, this is the new Italy rising.
So yeah, this was a happy ending at this conference that started out so.
It sure did. So controversially, right?
Yeah. People were so much against it.
Yeah.
And all the Italian media, the staff told me that more than 90% of all Italian media were against this conference.
That's right.
And now you have the people coming to the square telling that they do not agree with the media.
That's right.
And the ideology they're trying to promote, which is that a family is whatever you decide it is.
That's right, exactly. No objective standards at all. Well, this is Italy's answer to that. They're
Yeah.
not intimidated anymore.
No.
And what a crowning achievement too, with Matteo Salvini, the Deputy Prime Minister, speaking yesterday to a packed auditorium of supporters here, and with standing ovations. We're seeing Italy at every level, at the local level, at the institutional level, and at the national level, rising.
Mom and dad makes
Mom
a
and
family.
Mom and dad makes a family, exactly. Babbo and mama.
Well, this is truly encouraging to see. And there are many families here, of course.
Of course, there better be.
Okay.
That's the bottom line. We're growing,
So,
they're shrinking.
I think we can say that you're right. Secularism is dying.
Secularism is dying, that's right.
And,
a new conservative age is beginning.
Something new
Yeah.
is on the rise.
Something new is on the rise, absolutely.
And it hasn't to do with politics, it has to do with life.
It does. It's much deeper. Politics is flowing out of it.
Yeah.
It's much deeper. You got it.
Yeah, it's much deeper than politics.
And therefore it's going to last.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. It's going to last a nice
These
long
are the
time.
true values you see here that people are defending and marching for. That can, revitalize the culture.
Absolutely. Yeah, for generations to come. That's the magic. That's what secularism doesn't have. It doesn't have generations.
So there's all the reason to be happy.
All the reason to be happy,
Yeah.
happy and optimistic. It's a hard, bumpy road to get here, but look what happens in the end.
Yeah,
And it's worth every step.
indeed it is. Thank you for watching here from Verona, Italy. I'm Iben Thranholm, and next to me I have Dr. Steve Turley, who is also known from Turley Talks. You can find him on YouTube. Have a very nice and blessed Sunday.